Hey, gang, it's me, Dr. Steve. And, what can I say? It's getting insane out there with the looming economic collapse and Biden inflation and indictments and supply chain crises. We all need to always be protecting each other as fellow patriots, making sure we got each other's back. And as we more and more connect with each other through the rising network society, so we can bypass the old liberal legacy institutions like email bypasses the post office, we do have to be more and more aware of the online threats that we all face. And that's why I'm so excited to be talking with our guest today, who's going to show us how we can protect our homes and our loved ones online. I'm joined by Matthew Cox. Matt is an expert in home title theft, and not just theoretically. Matt was actually in a former life on the top of the federal most wanted list for years for his cyber escapades. But thankfully, he has since switched sides and has now dedicated his life to protecting people from pernicious scams and criminal activity online. And he's got an amazing story he's going to share with us and some amazing resources as well. So, Matt, welcome to our channel. It's great to have you here, my friend.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, it's my honor. Well, I mean, real quick, Matt, let's get into it. Can you give everybody just a little bit of your backstory? I found it so fascinating.
Yeah, I started probably in the early 2000s committing title fraud and just manipulating public records in order to essentially borrow money against people's houses, even though they weren't my houses. So I would create fake identities. I would transfer the warranty deed from someone's house into the fake identity's name, and you could sell the house. There were many things I could do. You could sell the house, you could borrow against the house, and that's typically what I did. Was I would borrow against the home even though I didn't own it. So I would transfer the title out of the true homeowner's name into a stolen identity or a synthetic identity, and then I would go to the bank and I would borrow money against the house that I didn't own.
Wow.
Then I'd open bank accounts, take the money out, and then I'd leave. And then the true homeowner would be foreclosed on.
And that would take a few months later, right? That's not something.
Listen, in some instances, it could be 6 or 8 months. Now, I always say 3 or 4 months, but it could be 6 to 8 months. If I actually made a couple of mortgage payments to prolong that, it could definitely be 8 months.
I'm sorry, you there's a genius to this. I mean, you're committing a crime that nobody knows even happened until months afterward.
Right. Well, and yes, but the other thing is it's a crime that a lot of times law enforcement was not aware of. And
right.
So as a result, they were hesitant to help. Now because it's become so prolific at this point, and it's happening so often now. Law enforcement is much more apt to react in a more favorable way.
So so you're talking about hacking into someone's title in their home. How easy is that? Is it?
Can you pull up a website? You can pull up a website. Like if you can go online, I could go online, find out look up your name, find out where your house was on public records. Then I could go in and I could get the title to your house. I could create a title to your house, transferring the title from your name to someone else's name, scan it, send it in, pay a small fee, and your home title would be transferred from your name into whoever's name I want. Even if you had a mortgage on your house, I could then satisfy that mortgage by creating a fake satisfaction of mortgage from whatever bank you have a mortgage with. I could buy a fake notary and notarize it with a fake notary stamp. You can go online right now and order a notary stamp.
I was going to say, is that because all the deeds are online? They're all public record at this point? Is that?
Yes. When I did it, I actually would go into public records. But now you don't even have to go into public records. You can take your laptop, go sit in Starbucks,
right,
pull it up online,
right,
print it out, or type up a new deed and then scan it and record it.
So it's gone beyond just the fact that these deeds are all on our dinky county websites as matters of public record. You're saying it. I mean, it's pervasive. It's all over the place.
Yes, it's easier now than it was when I did it.
Wow. Who is doing this now? You're saying it's quite prolific. Who are the main operators in these? I guess it's a form of identity theft, in effect.
Well, it can. The thing is you can combine it. There's any number of variations on the scam. For instance, I think I mentioned this. I was speaking with some investigators that were looking into several of these crimes, and in the county that I live in, and what they were doing was these are just regular kind of scammers that would typically do credit card fraud or something along those lines. And what they would do is they would drive around and they were looking for abandoned properties that they
Okay.
thought were just abandoned. Now, that doesn't really happen that often. And they were transferring the warranty deed out of the homeowner's name into their personal names
Mm-hmm.
and putting the house up on the market and selling it. They
Wow.
sold 5 of them before they were caught. So this is just your average. You don't have to be super sophisticated. You don't have to have experience in banking. I'll give you an example. Do you remember 20 years ago, actually about 10 years ago, there was a rash of people filing for your tax refund. So the average, just regular scammers out there would go and they would get people's social security numbers, and then they would file for their tax refund before
Wow.
the true person could. So they would
Right.
have it direct deposited onto a prepaid credit card. They'd go spend it, and then you would go to file the true person would actually file, and they would find out, hey, somebody's already got my tax return. That
Wow.
initially 30 years ago, it was happening, but it wasn't a lot of people doing it. But then about 10 years ago, everybody was doing it. It
Right.
was rampant. Well, that's what's happening with
Mm.
title theft. 20, 30 years ago, periodically it would happen, but now it's happening all the time. And people don't have any idea that it's even a crime.
You mentioned talking to some of these law enforcement officials. Why aren't county officials stopping this? Why aren't they stopping a fraudulent deed from getting
So
filed?
it just now, I think, has become so bad that they're now trying to figure out ways to fix the problem, and they're running into real issues. I mean,
Right.
the only things that they can do make it more difficult for the average citizen. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So everything that they
Yeah.
can think that how to fix it only makes it more difficult for the average person who isn't doing
Right.
anything wrong. For a
Right.
scammer, he's going to get around that. So
Right, right, exactly. That's what they do. That's the job description in many
right,
respects, isn't it? Yeah. How about home insurance, homeowners insurance? Does that
homeowner.
provide a shield, as it were?
No. Homeowners insurance covers your house if there's a hurricane, if your house catches on fire, if maybe a sinkhole, flooding like that. That's what homeowners insurance is for. Doesn't protect your title. And a lot of people think that when they close on their home, they get a title insurance policy,
Hmm.
and they think, oh, that covers me. It covers you up to the day you close on your house. So all that policy says is that as of today, when you signed to buy your house, you have clear title. There's no encumbrances on your title. But 3 days later, if someone like me, let's say you were to rent your house to me a week later, I could then go downtown, transfer the title out of your name into my name or a stolen identity's name, and borrow against that house or put that house up on the market and sell it. And that's what's happening.
Wow.
These are not super, you don't have to be super sophisticated to do this. And, I'm sure you realize this. The only way to really protect yourself is just like with your credit card, to have it monitored. So
How?
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to ask. I mean, so how vulnerable are we? I mean, how vulnerable is It sounds to me like you say. I mean, we're really vulnerable. I mean,
Yeah. Do you own a
this is
house?
yeah, yeah. There you go.
If
Yeah.
you own a house, then if you own a house, then you're subject to having something along these lines happen. And the problem is that if it does happen and you catch it, and you go to the police station and you report it, like the police might try and find the person, but they're not going to fix the devastation that's occurred.
Right.
And the problem is that your house is no longer in your name.
Right.
Somebody may have sold it
So,
to
right.
another person. They may have taken out loans against that house, and you may be being foreclosed on, even though you didn't take those loans out.
Right.
The police aren't going to fix that for you.
Right.
They're going to
Right.
try and
That's
find
for
the
sure.
criminal.
Yeah. Yeah. That's for sure.
Right. So
They're not even obligated to. No.
right, and that's not their department. Their department is, hey, we need to find the guy that did this,
Right.
if
Right.
they can find him at all.
Right.
And I did this for years and years before it caught up with me.
Right.
So what ends up happening is now you've got some guy who's a manager of Tire Kingdom or who knows what, maybe he's a CPA or something, but he's not a real estate attorney, and he's not prepared to go into court and file the correct paperwork to stop this from happening. He's also not in a position to be able to contact these lenders that are foreclosing or the new homeowners. So
Mm-hmm.
he has to go out and hire an attorney.
Mm-hmm.
How much money does the average person have in his savings right now?
Yeah. No, it's insane. Yeah.
Does he have 20 grand or 10 or 20 or 30 grand, whatever it's going to cost for an attorney to unravel the chaos that someone like me has created?
Yeah, that's right. Is that your nickname, Chaos?
Chaos,
Like,
right. I was going to say, but the nice thing about Home Title Lock is Home Title Lock will immediately go out and hire a local real estate attorney to correct the problem, stop the foreclosure, get the property put back into your name, and they'll take care of all of those things for you. And like that to me is that's priceless. Like that's definitely worth it.
So, well, you're mentioning it's kind of like what we have with our credit cards, because our credit card, we all know our credit cards are getting scammed all the time.
Yes.
So you need some kind of monitoring system for
Right.
your house deeds. So that's in effect, that's what Home Title Lock is. It's a monitoring system 24/7 kind of
Right.
thing.
They will notify you that let's say your warranty deed was just changed, or maybe a lien was placed on your title, and then you have the option to say, hey, that wasn't me.
Hmm.
And so then they'll look into it, and if it's a problem that they can't correct, then they get an attorney, and the attorney corrects it for you.
And it happen. And the cool thing is it happens like immediately, right? Not 6 months down the line.
No, they start the process as soon as you tell them that was not me.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, if you catch it if it's been 6 months, you've probably lost your house.
Yeah, yeah, that it's too late, right? So that's the beauty of it. So Home Title Lock will monitor your online deed 24/7.
Yes.
And I did the research on this. It was fascinating. It's basically $1 a day when all is said and done. That's what you're paying for this kind of security, right? Am I
Roughly,
correct on
yes.
that?
Yes.
And then they'll alert you immediately if anyone's trying to mess with your title.
Yes.
And then they'll
absolutely.
hire an attorney for you if it goes that far, correct?
Right. And I think that they've got a couple different plans. They'll spend up to $500,000 to $1 million on attorney's fees to try and correct the issue.
Wow. And
You know,
what's the oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, I was just going to say, it's just that what's so funny is that, listen, every one of my credit cards, as soon as I swipe it, bing, it immediately says $15 was just charged on your
Right.
Capital One card or
Right.
whatever. But people, the largest purchase and the largest investment in their entire, life for most Americans, and they just assume that they're covered, that they're
Yeah.
safe. Then they're not.
Yeah, when I first found out how vulnerable my deed was, I freaked out. I couldn't, I was like, I got to let people know this. This is crazy. This is insane, and it's so easy to fix. That's the beauty of it. To prevent. That's the better way
Right.
of it. It's so easy, and so painless to prevent. Just what's the advantage of catching this immediately?
I mean, the advantage is that they can stop, they can put a freeze on your title immediately. They can correct the entire situation before you're being foreclosed on, before it's gone so far that it's you could lose your house. People have lost their
Right.
houses. And you've got an advocate.
Right.
It's important to have an advocate as opposed to you saying, "Hey, I didn't have anything to do with this." And I actually mentioned this today, speaking with someone, that at one point, and I'm not, this isn't me bragging. This is just me telling your audience that one time I actually satisfied the loan to someone's house, made a fake ID in his name, borrowed 3 mortgages on his house, and the banks started the foreclosure process. And when the authorities got involved, they took him downtown and grilled him for 5 hours because they believed he had to have been involved.
Right, right.
So it
Right.
took him 5 hours for him to just convince them I didn't do this, and to start looking for the real person who did.
Wow.
So, it's more than, hey, this is inconvenient. I mean, it can go really wrong. And the only thing that guy did to cause this was make the mistake of crossing my path. That was
Yep.
it.
Yeah. Yeah. And
He was just living
and
his
not
life.
have something like home title lock.
Yes.
Yep. Yep. Well, there you go, gang. I mean, I was so excited to have Matt come on because we all access one another online. And if you think the offline world is insanely corrupt, it's possibly even worse on the online world. So I want all of us to be safe and secure. And that's where Matt and Home Title Lock come in. So make sure to click on the link below, sign up with them today. We all need to take action to take care of our homes and our loved ones. And no one does that better than Home Title Lock. So many thanks to you, Matt. Thanks for sharing your backstory with us. And thank you so much for making our lives more secure.
Sure. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on.
It's my pleasure.